You're listening to the Business Communicators.
Guys, on Friday, I guess Thursday night, there was some major news that came out with the Lincoln Project. And for those of you that aren't familiar with the Lincoln Project, it was created by former Republicans back in 2019 who consider themselves never Trumpers. And if you look at their, founding members, it's Jennifer Horn, Rick Wilson, George Conway, whose wife was, Trump's number one spokesperson really in the White House, Steve Schmidt, John Weaver, Reed Galen, Ron Steslow, and Mike Madrid, again, founded in 2019 as sort of a think tank that was going after President Trump and trying to make sure that he wasn't reelected in 2020. And so far in 2021, that group has come under hot water. And for just additional background, over the summer, John Weaver, one of their co-founders of the Lincoln Project, really came under fire for sexually harassing and grooming young men in really, a disgusting manner. And ultimately, the Lincoln Project decided that they were going to separate themselves from Mr. Weaver. And most recently, a lot of reporters have been kind of digging into the Lincoln Project, looking into the financial practices. And on last Thursday night, there was a really, really interesting case from Jennifer Horn. And Jennifer Horn, one of the female co-founders, she had been engaging with a reporter, actually. And the Lincoln Project hacked into her account, shared some screen caps of DMs that she had with reporter Amanda Becker. And Amanda Becker is the Washington correspondent for the 19th News. She spent time with Reuters before. But it kind of raises the ethical question. I think it's incredibly wrong, possibly illegal, to hack into someone's direct messages and share them on social media, on your accounts, to try to elevate your brand or to smear somebody. And a lot of people have actually been calling for Twitter and Jack Dorsey to take action. But Twitter said on Friday, according to a tweet from Yashar Ali, that it didn't violate their terms and services. I'm curious on y'all's take on this whole situation, and I'm just trying to put my head around it right now.
Twitter makes a pretty big stand saying that they're not going to publish or allow anything to be published that was captured illegally. The fact that they're coming out saying that this is not illegal content makes me think that they actually had access to the account or the DMs beforehand. But, kind of glancing through them about off the record, we all work in communications. We know that nothing's off the record. The only private conversation that you can have is in person with no notes being taken. In today's world, yes, you have some level of anonymity with your phone where you need warrants to listen and wiretaps and those kind of things. But one party can be listening to, if I have a call with Hattie and, Hattie's recording it in Texas, that's legal. And so I think that's really there. She's a founder of the organization and she's trying to engage in the smear campaign. Really makes me wonder that there's some other stuff, for lack of a better statement.
First of all, Jennifer Horn, no relation to me. It's her personal account.
Yeah.
Which was created before the actual Lincoln Project.
A decade before.
A decade before. So even though she is a co-founder, the actual Lincoln Project doesn't have its own actual, if they have their own Twitter account, and if she was DMing from there or something like that, then I kind of have it. I think that would be an issue. But this is her personal account, which is a bigger issue. I kind of see some sabotage going on.
Yeah.
Undermining.
Yeah. And one of the issues that I have is that Jennifer Horn allegedly resigned because of the scandal with John Weaver, the sexual assault, the sexual harassment. It was a huge dark cloud for the Lincoln Project, and I think they've been kind of skirting on the ethical lines, and a lot of people have been trying to give them a pass just because they were going after Trump, and they were successful at what they did. But if you look at the financial side of things, I mean, they've been under fire for the last 6 to 8 months on just lining their pockets and getting so much money and donations. The video work and the campaign work they did was phenomenal, but it's the ethical side of things that kind of bother me. And so the Lincoln Project actually went after her 7 days ago, like a week ago, after she announced that her resignation, trying to discuss contract talks, some of her demands, her salary request, her signing bonus request. And so that's where the reporter actually reached out to her and had these conversations. And I just think it looks so bad on the male co-founders of the organization who are already under hot water and have already put a smear campaign against her, to go one step further and release her direct messages on Twitter. I don't know how they got them, even if it was part of her contract that, she had to turn over access to her Twitter for, 1 month after resignation, 1 year after resignation, whatever that might be. It looks pretty bad when the only woman on your board, the only co-founder that was a woman, you're going after her like this on social media and attacking her in a public forum. I don't think that's going to help your cause nor your credibility.
No, but you're also looking at that's like good old boys club.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah.
At the same time, I don't know whether she signed a contract that you turn this over, whatever you say, or you have some sort of understanding about the type of conversations you have or how you represent Lincoln Project on your Twitter. But like you said, I do agree that there's some level of sabotage or where these guys who are under fire and it also looks like it could be a distraction. Oh, let's deflect. Let's get this off of me. So we're gonna do this to her and see if we can amplify the BS around her. But this Weaver guy, I was reading the article about him, the allegations against him, the screenshots of what the conversations or the engagement that he was having with these individuals. And it is clearly, in my mind, an abuse of power.
Oh, 100%.
Oh, yes.
And the old dude really was taking advantage of these young people, and he was using his privilege, he was using his power to advocate for himself or to make it work for him. Now that in itself is just so horrible. So who knows what's going to happen next with this group?
I think it's done for. I really think it's done for. And we look at some numbers that the AP put out last year, and it said that the Lincoln Project has raised $90 million since its inception. Mm-hmm. And its whole purpose was to go after Trump, but only 27 million of that was spent on TV and online advertisements. So where did the rest of the money go to? Did it line the pockets of these co-founders? I mean, I think it's a brilliant move from them to capitalize on people, not wanting Trump in office and then being able to say, hey, look, we're ex-Republican strategists. We don't think that, Trump identifies with Republican politics and ideals. Let's go after him. But man, 90 million raised and only 27 million goes in advertising. Where did the rest of it go? And I think that's where the trust factor comes in. We spoke with Tonya Reese from Edelman, and she talked about trust in political and how it's so low in the United States and really across the globe. And I think this just goes to show why that's the case. And so not only do you have the financial element, but you have covering up the sexual harassment from one of their co-founders. And then 3, it's appearing like they're going after one of their co-founders because she's speaking out against them. So to me, that's 3 strikes. I think they're out.
Austin, we know that production for quality video editing and quality design and paying people to buy the ads is expensive.
100%.
I don't know about $60 million expensive, but it's expensive.
I do agree there was no checks and balances in place. Yeah. And unless they paid for a Super Bowl ad, which would have cost them in the area of millions of dollars. Yeah, where is that money? What are you doing with it? The stewardship behind it is not there. So, and then 2, did people demand to know, hey, we just assume that you're doing the right thing. We're gonna give you this money because we know you're gonna get this guy out, but we're not holding you accountable.
Well, you just hit the nail on the head there, Hattie, by saying holding accountable. If you look at some of the out replies on Yashar Ali's tweet, and if you're not familiar with Yashar, he's an amazing Twitter follower. Twitter follow. He used to work for Governor Newsom in California. He's been really plugged in on the political side, the Democrat side, for years. I would consider him pretty. I mean, he's definitely leans left, but he's one that listens to both sides and speaks, I think, the truth. I think he's one of the most credible journalists out there, and he's not really your standard journalist. I mean, he's done freelance work for a lot of publications, but he's broken a lot of news via his Substack newsletter, which I think is just absolutely incredible, and I think he does great work. But you look at some of the replies to the tweet, and it's a lot of people trying to defend the Lincoln Project and say, oh, well, it doesn't matter because they helped get Trump out of office. Yeah, that's true, but
to some extent,
exactly.
But they weren't by themselves.
Exactly. And I do think that accountability needs to be something that is out there. And accountability is something that's out there for all nonprofits, all 501c3s. That's why you have so many organizations that have to be transparent on where that money is going, right? So if you donate to, I don't know, a American Heart Association or something like that, you can go onto their website, or you can go to third-party websites that will show you a percentage of what goes to the actual charitable organization for, fighting a disease, fighting a certain cause. And then, of course, there is going to be overhead, right? You do have to pay salaries, that you have to pay, the electricity,
operating costs.
Yeah, operation costs. But when you see 92 million raised, 27 million used, that's a delta of what, $60+ million. It doesn't add up.
Again, there needs to be that level of transparency. There needs to be the, hey, trust us, this is what we're doing. And I from the founders, I get the impression that there's also another one of their ways to have another source of income, for lack of a better statement. I sit on the board of this organization and they pay me X number of dollars to do it. I don't agree with it at all, by any stretch of the imagination, just because that's just me. On the personality side of it, and I want to see them do good. All 401(c)(3)Bs, all nonprofit organizations.
Yeah.
But it does bring up a good point, Austin, to your point about they're getting a pass because they were working on getting Trump out of office, and there was 70-something million people that worked to get Trump out of office as well. But you believe the facts that you want to believe. So, they're doing good, so it doesn't matter what they're doing. And you could put out they could be clubbing baby seals. Not advocating that either, but then people are like, oh, they're doing good, even though that's right there. So that's my take.
I think you were trying to go for the "Thank You for Smoking" reference for that
Thank
great
you for
movie.
Not smoking,
yeah, Thank You for Not Smoking, back in the early 2000s, about the only thing worse than the Merchants of Death is clubbing baby seals.
Possibly.
It's really interesting.
It's been a long time since I've seen that movie.
Well, it's interesting what Thomas was saying, that people gave them money and they did this and they did that. Okay, they said they were doing certain things. They gave you the illusion, and they gave you a little bit of visual. They gave you the promotions to lead people to believe, okay, this is what's happening by the scenes. They probably did a third, if that was a third of that money.
Mm-hmm.
And as for the rest of, because people were happy about what they saw, they didn't think about it anymore. They were like, oh, yep. This is happening. See that ad right there? See that promo right there? And just happy little seals clapping. Yes, yes, yes. And that money was just going in their pocket or doing whatever it was doing. But one of the things that they did not have, I don't believe, and you tell me if this is true, did they have a separate objective group of people who kept them transparent, kept them accountable, kept them honest about what they were doing?
I don't know the ins and outs of the Lincoln Project, so I don't know that it would be fair for me to comment. But if you just look at some of the resignations that have happened in the past 6 months, I mean, George Conway stepping down, I believe, last August, and then, Ms. Horn stepping down just over a week ago, and then the scandal with Mr. Weaver, and you look at some of the allegations that apparently the Lincoln Project knew about this last June and denied and said that they never received anything, but there's email records. It seems like they were just looking out for number one, and they just pulled the turned a blind eye to everything was going on because they knew what they were doing was lining their pockets.
I would love to be a fly on the wall when The View and asked Meghan McCain anything about it, because Weaver worked for her father at one time. So that would be interesting conversation.
You've been listening to the Business Communicators.